Boy. Parashat Bo. Fantastic parasha. And let's see what we can learn about it ourselves. And maybe something we can learn about our time here as well. So during the journey, or during the mission that Moshe Rabbeinu had to take his people from Mitzrayim and so on and so forth, it says a few times that Moshe Rabbeinu says that Paro is not going to listen to me. Paro is not going to listen to me. Paro is not going to listen to me. And of course the truth is that Paro did not listen to him. So what was the point of Moshe going? And how does this connect to our lives, to us today? Paro was a very sealed person. In other words, there's nothing to talk to him about. He would not listen to anyone. He does only what he wants. He doesn't care about anything. So he's sealed, nothing to talk about. And we all know the difference when we're talking to somebody who wants to listen to us than to talk to somebody who is not really interested in listening to us. Needless to say, who does not want to hear us. It's amazing to watch the body language of people like this. You know, while you talk to them, you might talk to them about something else. They're going to take something, look at this, they look at the phone, and oh yes, well, what did you say? They always do it like this. And it's very important to pay attention to that, and I'll show you why, Be'ezrat Hashem, I'll show you why. Chazal tells us that when a Chacham comes to make a drasha, to give a lesson or to say Torah, we need to make sure that the people are eager to hear what he has to say. Pay attention. They are eager to hear what he wants to say. Because if not, better off he does not speak than speak to people who don't want to hear him. And we all know, without mentioning names and locations, of many places like this. You go to a congregation and the people don't want to hear Divrei Torah. They don't want to hear what the rabbi says, and the only thing that comes out of it is an absolute disgrace. So better off he doesn't talk. That's why it's important that it's going to be like this. So Moshe says, really, what's the point of me talking? It's going to fall on deaf ears. Paro is not going to listen to me. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to him, listen, don't worry about it, Moshe. You're going to speak. I mean, it's a crazy answer. You're going to speak, and Aharon would listen what you have to say. What? I'm going to speak, and so for that I need to go to Paro? What's the point of that? So the answer is that you're going to speak, but it's important that you're going to verbalize what you have to say. It's very important that those words slowly going to get absorbed into the world, as they say. Just like seeds that you throw into the ground, and you see them into the ground, they don't start to germinate immediately. They grow through a certain process of germination, and then they start growing. So are your words that you're going to say going to be like this. And we know it, many times. We experience it ourselves, right? When we went to the new building at the time, the old new building, when we came in there, it was a new building, we felt the place was empty. Because there was no Torah spoken there. The word was empty. The walls were empty. And it's interesting that as soon as we started to learn there, and you guys formed the minyan, there were more attraction to this minyan than the minyan upstairs, and people used to come. And why? Because the sound of Torah started to get observed in the walls. I can tell you myself, and I know it's not a matter of that I have powers, because I don't have any powers. Don't think. Just a matter of sensitivity. I can tell you by the thoughts that come to my head when I enter a place, what's going on this place? Do they learn a lot of Torah or not a lot of Torah? When I used to go, before COVID, when I used to go to Yeshiva Sha'ar Torah in my neighborhood, I'm telling you, it was, of course, it's Shabbat. How many thoughts of Torah? I couldn't write it. So, because there's always Torah in this place. And you go to a certain place, There is, but less. You can tell how much it is there. You have to be sensitive. You have to understand that. I mean, it happened to all of us. Many times you go to a place and you feel, I feel comfortable in this place. You've never been there before. You say, I feel like home. And you go here to a house and you feel empty. You might even build your own new house and you never feel at home in that place. And we need to understand what exactly happens there. So, after Aharon would listen what Moshe said, therefore each and every one will hear what they need to hear. Each one will already hear what they're supposed to hear, and it's going to be a different story altogether. Our Chachamim, our sages, tell us that yes, the ears of Paro are deaf. He doesn't want to hear anyone. He is closed. Because Paro is very brute. He's not refined. Yeah, he might be all externally refined, but in terms of his neshama, in terms of his soul, he's very brute, not refined at all. So therefore, and he was such a level that he was the worst unrefined person. And it's so crazy to think about a person that was the maybe at the time the strongest man in the ancient world as an unrefined person. He had all the physical luxuries and pampering, but spiritually he was a very brute person. But still those words must be said by Moshe Rabbeinu in order for the world to hear those words. And once the world hears the words, it's going to have an effect on Paro as well. It's so interesting that the words of Moshe Rabbeinu, Shalach et Ami, became a slogan by almost everyone who cried for freedom, whether it was Nelson Mandela in South Africa, whether it was Martin Luther King in America in the 50s and the 60s. They all use Moshe Rabbeinu words. This is to show you the power of the words of Moshe Rabbeinu. Over 3,000 years, they still lingered in the world in terms of freedom. That's the power of the word, and that's what Moshe Rabbeinu did. And we all know that we all know something about sound waves. Now, sound waves are what? The form of energy, right? I'm creating an energy. It's a wave that goes out. Now, as you know, there's no loss of energy, and this energy, once they come out of my mouth, they penetrate and they continue basically going until forever, until the end of the universe. And it's very important to understand that. It's just, we understand what sound waves have. For example, you might have radio waves, you can have microwaves. For all you know the effect even of 5G waves, according to the conspiracy people, what they do to you, as they say. We understand that those things had effect on us. But as much as they do effects to benefit us, chas v'shalom, they could have an effect to harm us. As in the case of, for example, gossip or lashon hara, when we gossip about people, we speak badly about people, that has an effect on things. The speech, the words that came out of Moshe Rabbeinu became, in a way, the pipeline, or the main pipeline of the light that came down to this world. I would say the light of freedom that goes on and spreads all over Egypt. And it's affecting the awareness of everybody. It's affecting the awareness of everybody. And as we say, Hadibur ne'emar, zera niklat. The words were said, the seed was planted. That's why you have to be very careful and to pay great attention to what you allow to penetrate your ears. If it wasn't for the media bombarding you 24/7 with their agenda, America today would not have been what it was, what it is today. It would still be what it was 50, 40, 60, 70, whatever years ago. Slowly, slowly. The process is slowly, slowly. And in a way, I'm really concerned for the future of America because of the one-sidedness of the media control over our lives. We know one person that used the words, the power of the words, to almost destroy the world, and that was Hitler. And then if you think about it, last night, when I was laying in bed, because I have nothing else to talk about, I was thinking about the power of Nazi Germany and what they had done that sometimes seems forever, but it was only for a short period of time. They started, World War II started September 1st, 1939, and ended up in August 1945. That's not so many years. And it seems like they ruled for 100 years. And it's all due to the power of the word. That's why you have to be very, very careful. And you see that there are people who hear it based on their own internal frequency. There are people who hear it immediately, and there are some people who take it slowly to hear. It takes more time. As you see in the third plague that Moshe brought on Mitzrayim, the Chartumim, those magicians, Egyptian magicians, already says, Echba Elokim hi. God is involved with this. They already heard the word of Moshe. They start to get a different frequency out here. And the last one, of course, to understand the world of Moshe that penetrated him, of course, was Paro. At the end, when he was drowning. As he tells us, that's what we have in the Tefillah, or in the Chumash, it says, Mi chamocha ba'elim Hashem, mi kamocha. The Medrash tells us that when Paro was drowning, he realized finally the greatness of Hashem, and he says, he acknowledged Hashem, and then Hashem saved him. So mi chamocha, like he was drowning, and then he says, mi kamocha, when he was saved. Of course, the Midrash tells us he became the king of, where? Yeah. Nineveh, yeah. So, one of the greatest tikkunim of the whole story of Mitzrayim is the passage or the transformation that a person has to do from Paro to Pesach. We said already Paro, the words Paro, we can split into two, which means pera, a bad mouth. Paro, pera. Vepesach, po, sach. Here, the suach is to speak. However, the gematria of sach, samechet, is 68. And 68 is the gematria of chaim, of life. So to transfer from paro to life, that's the tikkun that they were going through, and that's why it's Yetziat Mitzrayim. When we say Pesach, the mouth is talking good things. When you take good things, you get life. You realize when you are involved in being positive and seeing good, you realize that it's actually good. And here, yes, right here, it is good. But how much are we in touch with this? There are many people who will be very, very careful with what they put into their mouth in terms of kashrut. They'll get only super kosher, super paduper, maduper kosher, glat, super glat, appropriate kasher le'achilat Mashiach. So people pay attention to what comes into their mouth, but people are not that careful with what comes out of their mouth. One of the ways to lose control of what comes out of your mouth is be completely impulsive. And when you are completely impulsive, you don't pay attention to what comes out of your mouth, you lose your life. So that's why it's very important to be quite aware on what are you talking, what comes out of your mouth all the time. If I'm in the awareness on the state of mind of Paro, that it is here, is bad, I need to be aware of it, and I need to also know if I'm in the awareness of Pesach, of life as well. As Rabbeinu says to us, it's enough that the words are spoken in the space of the world. They already have an influence. Once your word come out of your mouth, that's it, you have no control, but they're already changing things. So that's why it's very important to speak good. And if you go, for example, to shuls, that people get along with one another, and people speak good about one another, well, guess what? The shul thrives, and there is simcha, there is joy in the shul, and everybody's happy. And the shul that everybody talks about everybody else, what happens? From having a shul with 500 people, you end up to be with 5.25 people. Don't ask me what the quarter is, I don't know, but you know what I'm saying. So, whatever you say has an effect on reality. As much as we know that, for example, when there is a pitaron, when a person has a chalom, when a person has a dream, it's very important to do one or two things. Either don't tell about your dream, or tell your dream to a person that you know he's a positive person and knows how to interpret it. He will interpret it to you in a positive way, because we say in Chalom, as the Gemara says, Hakol olech achar pitaron. All according to the way you said it to interpret the dream. And that what the dibur talking is what turns it from olam machshava, from the world of thought, to reality, which is the execution. I think good, I speak good. I think bad, I speak bad. So you're taken from something that is, in your mind into an action. And so is taking the word out of your mouth is a seal that you make an impression in your own world, in your own internal world. For example, that's why it's very important when a baby is born to give the child a good name, not to give him a bad name, not to call it after wicked people. That's why it's important, with all due respect to tradition, but if your grandfather or Chas v'Shalom, your father was a wicked person, it is recommended not to give him that name, because the kid will go after the reality in which this person left in the world. Give your child a good name. Don't call your kid by names. In other words, don't call your kid, donkey, stupid. Because by you calling him those names, he would act like a donkey and he would be stupid. Why? Because you created that reality for the child. If you call your child stupid, right, then you can never complain, because stupid people do stupid things. So what do you want? You just label him like that. But if you're going to tell him tzaddik, you're such a tzaddik, why did you do such a thing? It doesn't fit you. So you acknowledge that he's a tzaddik, he would not do it next time. Of course, we're talking about kids, not about, big buffoons who are like over 30 years old and still act like little children, right? We're not talking about that. So it's very, very important. The same thing also in your Seudat Shabbat. It's very important to speak about good things, because Seudat Shabbat, when you speak about politics, about anything like this, you are blemishing the light that could come to the Shabbat table, and you are basically destroying the reality of Shabbat Kodesh, of the Holy Shabbat. So if you don't want to talk about it, guess what? Don't talk. As we said before, don't talk. Don't, business to the side, politics to the side, no Trump, no Biden, no Maiden, no Pamela, no Kamala. What's it, Kamala, no? Yeah, whatever. Yeah, Kagdila, Kamala. Yeah. So Yetziat Mitzrayim for us is basically giving birth to new awareness, as much as the words are boundaryless and they can affect reality. So is our awareness. Our awareness is what determines the state of the whole entire world. Matzav, what we call matzav olamot. Not only your own personal, small, little, insignificant world, but your awareness could affect all the worlds out there. You could affect, you could destroy. So our sages tell us that if we're going to look at the world, we'll see sometimes that there is what we call a world that is more cultural, intellectual, which is run by people, what we call more or less cultural people, right? That really call themselves important people, and therefore they give advice to the primitive people, which will be us, how to behave, how to think, and so on and so forth. You don't want to know what I mean? Go. That's exactly what happens in politics. Those politicians, right, think that they are the best thing ever happened to humanity, that they can think for you, they'll decide for you, they know everything what's good and what's bad for you, and you are the buffoon that can only do one thing, is just vote for them. That's the only thing you need to do. But besides it, you are nothing. I mean, so much for being so cultural, right? God, please God save us from such culture. But that's exactly what happened. Or on the other hand, the world is being run by absolutely lunatics who destroy and harm the world, and they control. In other words, that our history, our modern history, really moves between those two extremes. Either we have dictators, or we have those, super liberal intellectuals that know what's good for everybody. So, what is this seesaw? What this movement depends on? We go from this extreme to that extreme. So I have news for you guys. It all depends on Am Yisrael. It all depends on us. In every chelek in the world, there is also the inside. Everything in the world, everything in the universe has an external side to it and an internal side to it. Has a physical part for it and has a spiritual quality to it. And the klipa, which is the chitzoni, which is the outside, it's the shell, that's the point that is ra, that it's bad. And then of course there are levels in that klipa, in this chitzoniyut, in this externalism. There is further external, until the complete edge, that's the lowest level of externalism that a person can get. That's what Paro was. Now, since that is dependent on Israel, on Am Yisrael, our job is to really increase the power of pnimiyut, of internalism, to become more spiritual. In other words, we need to start learning and discuss more about spiritual matter, and I do believe that is lacking in most places or settings in which people learn Torah. Today we became a generation that really deals with extreme technicality, and there's no emphasis whatsoever for internal processes. It's all about measurements and practicality and how to do and what to do, and it doesn't deal bichlal with the inside of the nefesh or with the neshama. Nobody talks about these things anymore. And that's our jobs. And then when you do so, right, nobody talks about, for example, Musar. It became very bad, like steps to really fix yourself. Elevate, not fix just because something is bad. But now let's say I'm okay. How do I get from this stage to that stage? By making more technicalities? No, that doesn't work like this. Do we respect Talmidei Chachamim as much as we should? No, we don't. We should bring up a stage or a place that the most important people in Am Yisrael are the Talmidei Chachamim. These are the Bnei Torah. And these are the people that will pay attention, or should at least pay attention, to the state of the internal state of the person, not to his external state. And we spoke about it regarding clothing and so on and so forth. And we did say what makes the person. The clothing makes the person, or the person makes the clothing. We got too hung up on the external aspects of our human interaction that we forgot to examine the person inside. So, of course, if I would wear a frock and I wear a borsolino and I grow my beard and I have those crazy peot like this, and, so therefore you consider me to be a big, great, wonderful rabbi. However, I can wear a pair of jeans, I can be the same person, and maybe put a nice flannel shirt. There's nothing wrong with flannel shirt, maybe even cowboy boots, and you won't hear, a word I'm saying. Because you're stuck in externalism. And that's a state that when that happens in Am Yisrael, so those things happen when the pnimiyut, the internal part of Am Yisrael becomes the more dominant. So therefore, Chasidei Umot HaOlam, the righteous Gentiles in the world, are being awakened, and therefore they run the world in a different manner than it is run. But when Am Yisrael is being swallowed by externalism, and therefore Am Yisrael goes down and leaves the pnimiyut, the internalism, leaves the spiritual aspect of that. That's why we go from this side to the other side. We have dictators and we have the other lunatics on the other side. In a way, guys, I'm going to tell you the following. It's all our fault. And we need to internalize that. It's something that we should do. When Am Yisrael is further, when the people in Am Yisrael that are looked up on as like the great people of Am Yisrael are the people who are the furthest from the Torah, the people who are furthest from tzedakah, that everything by them is a sheker v'chazav, everything is based on a lie, not on the truth. So when they rule and they control and they become the important people in Am Yisrael, the same thing, mirror image, happens in Umot HaOlam by the nations of the world as well. And we need to understand that. So if you want to know things why they are, it's maybe because we don't do things right. So if you want to know what's the situation but us, it's not a problem. You want to see at what state Am Yisrael is? Not a problem. Look who is lifting the head up in the world. Who is controlling the world? Would anybody think that needless to say, it's a very painful subject, but remember September 11, 2001? Would anybody ever think, especially after World War II and on, that the United States of America will almost be brought down to its knees by 21 Arabs? Never. If you want to know, and would anybody think that the United States of America will come to such a state of separation internally to the state that we are today? Nobody will think about this. And the reason is, are we all united around one another? Are we afraid of our enemies? Well, that's exactly what happens. Whatever happened to us is being magnified in the whole entire world. And I always told you, one of the reasons I do believe deep down inside on a spiritual level why there is anti-Semitism, why the Jews are being oppressed, is because the nations know that their fate is dependent on us, and if we don't do our job, we are actually hurting them as well. So we better straighten up. We better awaken tshuva inside of us. So that's exactly what Kadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu, go out and start talking the words of God out to the world. Let those words vibrate the walls of every being, every existence, every human being. The words will be out there. The frequency is out. Let those things start to come out. And then we could apply the change. Then we could see what this will change the awareness of the world, the situation, the mindset in which the world is. We bring freedom to the world. And again, the concept of freedom to the world was first generated by the Jews. The concept of freedom, if there's any human being that is free today in the world, is only because the Jews, through the Torah, of course, introduced the concept of let my people go and the concept of Shabbat. So every human being that is free out in the world should come and kiss every Jew we can find, not stone him. And that's a word that is not being spoken enough. We as Jews initiated freedom in the world, not anybody else. Because if not, everybody would have been slave, working as feudal people. That's exactly what it is. Look at the responsibility that we have. So of course we always spoke about the Makot of Mitzrayim, and we spoke about before about the Makot of Mitzrayim, and we spoke about the spiritual aspect of those plagues of Egypt, But there's another point that maybe we should really clarify here. And we said that the makot to Egypt, those plagues to Egypt, were something negative. In other words, it was something that was a plague to them, but yet was a form of a medicine to the Jews. As the Navi Yeshaya, as Isaiah says in chapter, Yeshua chapter?
53.
Wrong. I'll take it, no, right here?
4.
19. Verse?
4.
22. Isaiah 19:22 says the following: "V'nagaf Hashem et Mitzrayim nagof berafo," and then v'shavu ad Hashem, and then they will make shuvah, they'll come back to Hashem. And then v'ne'etar lahem u'refahem, and he was willing to accommodate them, and they became cured. So it's known she'en ra yored milmala. We all know that no bad comes from above. No bad comes from Hashem. Everything that comes from Hashem is actually, it's good. Because from Shamayim there is one single plain pure light that comes from above. So how could it be that such a beautiful spiritual power would split into two and will influence people in such different way? How something like this is actually possible. So let's take the Makah of Choshech, and it says, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, and Hashem said to Moshe, Natei yadcha al hashamayim ve'yi choshech. Put your hands on the dark on the sky, and there's going to be darkness on Eretz Mitzrayim. Vayamash v'chashach vayad Moshe et yado al hashamayim, and Moshe raised his hands to the heavens. Right? And where was I? It was darkness on Egypt. How long? For 3 days. And 3 days, and for 3 days they couldn't even get up from the darkness. So this is something very interesting. So the Mefarshim said the following: the darkness of Mitzrayim was not just the lack of light, not just the lack of light. On the contrary, it was so thick. The choshech, the darkness in Mitzrayim was so thick that if a person stood, he couldn't sit down. If a person was sitting, he couldn't stand up. And in a way, we lost all sensation of dimension of space. We couldn't tell when we are. You couldn't tell if you're up or you're down. You were packed within this darkness. In other words, they were all lost. Everybody was lost. So in Midrash Rabbah, they ask, where is this choshech come? Where is this darkness come? So I'm quoting Rabbi Yehuda says, "Michoshech shel mala." In Shmot Rabbah, look over there, "Michoshech shel mala," from darkness from above. So beautiful. I love the Netivot Shalom. So the Netivot Shalom asked the following: what does it mean, choshech shel mala? What does it mean, darkness from above? It says, because we know that above in the spiritual world it's all light. So what does it mean, choshech milamala? It says, and this is the remes for the choshech, the darkness that came on Mitzrayim. And that's why he was able to split into two different entities, into good and bad as well. Because Moshe, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should have told Moshe, harem et yadcha, lift your hand, right? And then it's going to be darkness. And then what did he say to him? Hatei yadcha. Lehatot et hayad means to point it down. So what exactly was going on here? So what he was doing here, that he says, you should go up to Shamayim, basically elevate yourself to the spiritual world, and you're going to bring down, pay attention, those beautiful heavenly lights down to this world. Wait a minute, he brought the lights down to this world and then there was darkness? The answer is yes, absolutely. Lema davar domeh. You were in darkness, a person was in a dark room for a long period of time. I don't know, a whole entire day is in a dark room making photographies, whatever. Then all of a sudden he opens the door, he goes out. Imagine you are somewhere in Israel, the sun is very bright, or let's say Arizona or something like this. You go out and what happens right away? You close your eyes, the light is so bright, you actually close your eyes, you end up to be in darkness as well. The lights were so great, were so powerful that they couldn't take it, and for them it became darkness. And that's exactly what it is. The light from above, the spiritual, the ruach, the aura ruchani is so great that a person is not able to receive it. For him it will all be darkness. It will always be dark, and that's why a person needs to, as we said before, work on himself. Make yourself a vessel, a kli, and appropriate to receive the lights. Otherwise, the whole entire world, you would not be able to see the greatness and the wonderful that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does with you. So if you go and you complain about how unfair things are, if you go and you complain that how difficult things are, how miserable you are, it means that you at that point need to work on yourself, because your kli, your vessel, is not appropriate to receive the light and actually see the good. You are still in the midah, as we said, paro. You're not in Pesach. Pesach, remember, mouth of life. Pesach. You are in paro that says, here it's bad. For you, it's all bad. The reason why you see it's bad is because you need to work on yourself. And you need to want to see the light. When you want to see the light will come. And a person says the Netivot Shalom, and I'm quoting, Mi shemiyamav lo hurgal le'or ruchani. A person that did not get used to spiritual delight, spiritual light, right? You're not used to that. But rather, holech v'nimshach, you're being drawn and by physical excitement, physical pleasures, right? For him, he says, ha'or haruchanim yesurim kashim. Spirituality is a very difficult thing. It's torturous for a person who is immersed in physical pleasures. Rabotai, you have to understand, you have to wake up to understand that. It's a tremendous thing. And it says, however, Bnei Israel, they prepare themselves how? B'moshavtam, in the place that they dwell. In other words, in all their actions. בבואם ובלכתם, בבואך ובקומך, בשוכבך בדרך ובלכתך בדרך in every aspect of your life. Always need to know that God is one and He wants your good, and when you prepare yourself, when you direct every action, as we always said, as we follow the same halakha, the first halakha in the Shulchan Aruch, Shiviti Hashem leneged einai, is a klal gadol be'avodat Hashem, as the Rama brings. That is something as if you direct your actions all the time to Ribbono Shel Olam, you're preparing yourself to declare, you're actually going to start to realize how good HaKadosh Baruch Hu does with you. And how lucky and fortunate you are. And maybe at that point you're going to start taking care of your life. Because when your life means nothing to you, absolutely nothing to you, there's no point of you taking care of yourself, or cherishing this life, or doing something important with yourself. It's meaningless. That's the reason that in Pompeii, as I said to you before, their concept was eat and drink, because tomorrow we die. There's no hope in the world like this. And that's the reality of our lives. And we need to understand. We live right now in a very difficult and complex reality of what we call Yemot HaMashiach. It's around the corner, Rabotai, it's around the corner. And we are mamash, seconds before the complete redemption. Just like they were in Mitzrayim. We just were in Mitzrayim. And if you're a person who is even holding a little bit to the truth, not that trying to live his life truthfully, somewhat truthfully, you would see around you a completely different world. You see something that's completely different than most people. Completely different than most people. As the Navi says, Have omrim lara tov, those who say to the bad that is good, vela tov ra. The Rambam talks about it, by the way. The Rambam talks about that the good food for you is not something that is sweet, it's something that is a little bitter. Most of the people go after something sweet, and it's bad for you. Yeah, you're going to get diabetes out of that. Eat greens and vegetables, they'll be better for you. It's everything reversed. What is holy is not. It's so pathetic that today, in today's day and age, the emet became sheker, truth became a lie, and the lie became the truth. It's unbelievable what we live in. It's a crazy world. Of course, there is a tool for that, and there's a way for that, right? Everything that the Kadosh Baruch Hu hates, mamash, for him is mukse michamas mius. It's repulsive to Ribbono Shel Olam. We cherish that, and now there's no concept of busha. There's no something. Everything has to be public. Please leave something that you should not share with everybody. There's no busha anymore in the world. No embarrassment. It's a terrible state that we're at. And a person should be very, very careful with what is popular. Usually with what is popular right now, you should know it's something you should stay away from. Because of the state of the world that we're at. It's very important. So Moshe Rabbeinu, as we call him, Ra'aya Mehemana, right? It says in the Zohar, the Yavo Yamim and this people, and this, what the Zohar says, it's really amazing. There's some people who are going to steer away from Torah like a person steers away, Chaz v'Shalom, that's what the Zohar says, from a dead dog. And that's exactly what it is today. It's a lo la'amin, lo la'amin. So when there is, of course, this concept that when the great light needs to enter into the great darkness of the world, when there's a great shefa, this abundance that's come and as a shefa on kulam, it cannot happen immediately. The light cannot enter at one point. It happens gradually. The same thing as, you don't need to be such a big chacham. You gotta look around. In the morning, the light comes slowly. It doesn't go like this, turn on the light, turn off the light. Gradually, started like dam. Slowly, the sky becomes red, just like in Mitzrayim. All these things are the same thing. Slowly. And by the way, when things are going down, it's also like this. It's not going to be all of a sudden dark. It's a process. But right now, we need to understand that that's what we need to do, and we need to commit ourselves to the process. We need to commit ourselves to receive spiritual food all the time. Now is the best time that you can find maybe in history to get closer to Hashem. And that's what the Ari said. The Ari said that in our generation, when a person makes tshuva, he can reach highs that even a Tana could not have reached. Because everything is so removed. So when a person connects himself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it has to be with such velocity that he will be attached to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Al achat kama v'chama, you should think about what will happen if a person, Chaz v'Shalom, does an Averah in our time. What a loss. What are you saying about Averah? Why, if I made an Averah now, I made an Averah in the time of Big and Beit HaMikdash, it was different? Yes, it is. Of course it's different. Because the reward that you could have gotten from preventing yourself doing the Averah and doing the mitzvah is so great that doing the Averah today is much worse than before. Much worse than before. So slowly, you have to do so, and you have to prepare yourself. The best way to prepare yourself for this, to prepare yourself internally, the tools to clean your kli inside, Rabotai, is lishmor l'divrei chachamim. Aseh lecharav. Create a reality. Aseh lecharav, not necessarily just make yourself a rabbi. Aseh lecharav, you have to act a lot. Aseh, act, rav, a lot. צריך להיות right now in the זמן של פעילות. Not, we can't say שלום עליך נפשי, I don't really care. שב ואל תעשה. No, עשה לך רב. You have to act a lot. If you're not going to help your fellow Jews to come now, it's lost forever. Today you're going to be able to give the people the ticket to make it to Mashiach or not. עשה לך רב. Yes, make yourself a rabbi. But you also have to be in action all the time. Take an initiative. Create opportunities for yourself. Be metar yourself. Midvar sheker tirchak. Now you have to go to the extreme for that. As the Chazon Ish says, when it comes to emet v'sheker, in enemy die, you have to go to midat emet. But when it comes to chinuch, which is emet, and when it comes to issues of truthful, you have to be completely to the extreme. Tirchak, run away from sheker. Not only don't lie, run away from it. And of course, you have to prepare yourself. The best tool to prepare yourself is be kovea itim la Torah. Why? Because remember, that light that we spoke about, that pure light that brings the shefa to the world, or sheba machziram lamutav, the light in the Torah brings them back. Which light is that? The or hashamur letzadikim la'atid lavo. You could enjoy if you look at the Rambam. We have one more minute. If you look at the Rambam, when the Rambam talks about, the Gemara talks about it, Ma ben yamenu liyemot HaMashiach. What's the difference between our days and the times of the Mashiach? Nothing. Sheyu ela she'abud malchuyot. That the Goyim would not oppress us. Why should not oppress us? So we can go to Dubai? No. Sheyu Israel chofshiim la'asok b'Torah. That the Jews can sit down and learn Torah. So Rabotai, when you come to Yeshiva and learn, you are experiencing Bezeir Ampin, but you experiencing Yemot HaMashiach. Don't tell me you believe in Mashiach, you don't kovea itim laTorah. That's why the next question after those nasata v'natata kavata itim is tzipita leYeshua. Do you accept, look for redemption? It goes hand in hand. You can be free. You can be free unless you learn in Torah. You can prepare your kli for that. And the final biru is now. We just need to understand. We need to understand that we need to make it, because if not, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will make the determination who is appropriate, who made this kli appropriate, and who did not make his kli appropriate. Don't forget about those people that led in Mitzrayim. And that's the whole concept of renewal, itchadshut, and that's the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Li'itchadesh b'chol yom, ha'mechadesh b'tuvo b'chol yom ma'aseh bereshit. Every day is a new day, every day is a new hope. And through good thoughts and good words, teach yourself to speak only good. When you speak only good, it doesn't make a difference on whom. You create a reality of goodness around you. And that will make you into appropriate clear. But there's no room to wait, no place to wait. And again, I just want to remind everybody, if anybody has questions, you could reach us at rabbigaon@gmail.com. You could go to the Yeshiva, Etzion.com. Ask any questions. And what?
YouTube.
Yeah, what else?
YouTube,
Instagram, and all the other Merim Bishin. It's all there. You can join us, and if you have any questions, we will be more than happy to answer you. Until then, boys and girls, have a Shabbat Shalom and a wonderful night. questions? דקה מאוחר. אז כן, אמרתי ליונתן, אמרתי שישים את זה פה, באמצע, בדיוק יש לנו מקום, עוד אחד ככה. אבל הוא עסוק, הוא לא מרגיש טוב, היום הוא בבית, יש לי עוד אחד חולה. לא, חוץ ממנו, שניים כבר יש להם, שלושה יש להם.
יש לי פה שתיים, עשו לי טקסט מסג' אתמול.
כן?
עם פיבר.
גם אצלנו. שיהיו בריאים.
אי אפשר לברוח מזה.
אי אפשר.
חזק וברוך רבי חנן.
רבי חנן.
שאומר, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל, שכתיב באמת פה בכל שנאמר. אדוני יחפץ חמא, צידקו יגדיל תורה ויאדיר על ישראל.